We're talking Cleveland Browns. So we'll just go ahead, start with the basics. Same coaching staff. Actually, no, there's a new. You know what? Why don't I pull up my notes rather than just freestyle it? So what I think and what Prop Beaver has alluded me to seems like the Browns are transitioning into a passing offense. What are your thoughts on that take, Steve? Before we even get started.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, that was one of my questions because obviously Ken Dorsey just got fired and now he's taking over for the Browns. Is Stefanski still going to make the play calls? Do we know if Dorsey?
They just announced it this morning or last night that
they?
Stefanski is still calling the plays. And the only reason I know that is I just saw it. That just got announced.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. I mean, in that case, you kind of have to, right? Like Chubb's not going to be available for a while. And I actually like their pass catchers, it's actually pretty deep. We got, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy now, obviously the main guys. So, I mean, Njoku, Pro Bowler last year, played really well. So, you kind of have to. But the problem is you need a quarterback. So there's that one little issue with Mr. Deshaun Watson. I mean, it all comes down to him, really.
Yeah. Hold on. I forgot to put the images. Now, here's the thing, though. We saw... Now, what I like about the Browns, and Prop Beaver wrote this down, and I think it's a great way to phrase it. Think of the adversity this team went through. They lost their offensive tackles, right? They lost. I'll read exactly what he wrote because it's phrased perfectly. All right, so keep all this in mind. The Browns won 11 games last year.
11 games with Joe Flacco. Yes.
Yeah. Well, they won football games with 4 different quarterbacks last year.
Absolutely insane. Yeah.
Jack Conklin, both of their offensive tackles got hurt out for the season. In fact, they lost 3 offensive tackles because DeJuan Jones, the third one, came in and got hurt also. So they have their 4th and 5th offensive tackles playing a majority of the season. They lost their safety in Grant Delpit from LSU. They lost Rodney McLeod as well. 2 key members of their secondary out for the season. Deshaun Watson out for the season. They brought in Dorian Thompson-Robinson out for the season. Well, actually, he got a concussion and missed a couple of games. But they brought in then Joe Flacco, who wasn't even employed. How did this team win 11 games? I mean, Myles Garrett was even taking press conferences in an arm sling. Amari Cooper was playing banged up. David Njoku was hurt. He had facial burns. He got like in a bonfire or something. I mean, this team... No team saw as much adversity as the Cleveland Browns did, and they won 11 games. And I'm wondering, what do you want to start with, offense or defense?
We'll go offense.
Okay.
Just to piggyback off that, like, is this the fishiest, weirdest line you've seen? So they win 11 games with backups, right? All the guys are coming back, and now we have an 8.5 total. We'll talk about that later, I know, but it's wild. But
wild.
And the O-line, like you said, I mean, there's just injuries left and right. This team kind of reminds me of the Jets in a little bit. I know we talked about the Jets in regards to what they have, defense and all that kind of stuff. But their O-line, I mean, by Pro Football Focus, ranked 4th this year already. With everyone healthy, they got a good O-line. We know that once they can stay healthy. So.
Yeah, and staying healthy is definitely a big question mark because I think we all assumed that Conklin and Jedrick Wills would be back, but actually in training camp, they're still on the physically unable to perform list. Now, I think there's a chance they are back for week 1, but by no means is that set in stone. In my opinion, they just need one of them because that kid, DeJuan Jones, can play. DeJuan Jones was 2nd in football in, pressure rate allowed via all rookie offensive linemen. So that kid, DeJuan Jones, if they have to start him because one of those 2 main tackles are hurt, they'll be fine. So
that's huge. And when was he drafted? Do you remember? I don't even think he was that high, was he? Maybe he was. I don't remember. But
Prop Beaver says he believes he was a 3rd-round pick.
Okay. Very, very impressive. That's for sure.
And there's a couple reasons that it looks like the Browns are transitioning into a passing offense. And like you said, obviously Nick Chubb, we don't know what his deal is. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to think that we don't even see Nick Chubb to the second half of the season. Nobody knows that for sure. In fact, I did read a report that it was looking pretty optimistic, but still, no one knows his status. No one knows what condition he'll be in when he returns. But in addition to that, like you said, they bring in Ken Dorsey, who, if you remember, before he got fired in Buffalo, they were throwing the ball a lot. It's when they transitioned over to Brady's when they started running the ball. So Ken Dorsey likes to throw the ball. Stefanski, he's kind of getting tagged as like a a guy that likes to run the football, but that's not really what he was doing in Minnesota before he came here. He was throwing it. So I think the reason that he was running the ball so much is that kind of how his team was built. And he's, in my opinion, slowly transitioning to a team that can throw the football. I mean, they drafted some wide receivers recently. They didn't really have many picks this year, but they did bring in a wide receiver with their second pick, which was actually the 3rd overall pick. Wow. Watson, I mean, they spent money on a quarterback, indicating they want to throw the ball. How that pans out is still...
Can I remind people about Deshaun real quick? The Cleveland Browns gave up 3 first-round draft picks and then paid him $230 million, and that's fully guaranteed as one of the worst contracts in the history of sports. He has not played 7 or more games since 2020. So how could we expect a quarterback when I think as a quarterback, you need to see game reps. You need to see it over and over and over again between injuries, his suspension. How are we going to expect this? I mean, do we have to handicap this team as a Jameis Winston team with Jerome Ford? Because that's, obviously Deshaun is going to come back, but a cracked shoulder, all this stuff, like it's going to be brutal for this team, I think.
Well, okay. I think I disagree a little bit, but it's not because I think Deshaun Watson is going to. I think the way this team is built with the defense, I think they need a quarterback to go in there and be decent, and they can win a bunch of games, kind of like we saw with Joe Flacco. I think Joe Flacco put up some stats, but if you actually looked, he was like 23rd in DYAR. Yeah, he wasn't anything crazy analytically. And I mean, Deshaun Watson, look, I'm not a Deshaun Watson guy or anything. They were 5-1 in the games he played. So, 4-1. He got hurt in the one.
And he did average like 175 yards per game passing.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay.
It's look, I'm not a Deshaun Watson guy. Yeah. I'm just saying I think they're setting it up where all he has to be is decent.
Yeah, and kind of like the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, like I was saying. But yeah, he just has to be decent. But I don't know if he can be. I mean, I was looking at stats. Gardner Minshew, by the way, since 2020 has played 35 games. Deshaun Watson, 28. He's just not playing, and I don't know if it's just injuries or mentally because of what's going on with him, but I just don't see a happy ending for him again this year. So
yeah, I can't disagree with I'm not optimistic about Deshaun Watson per se, but I think that they've set the bar pretty low on what he needs to do. I'll say that. But on the other side of the ball, I don't see any logical reason why the defense isn't top 3 in the NFL again. I mean, they did lose that linebacker, Anthony Walker Jr., who was a big part of the defense, but they brought in Jordan Hicks, who might even be an upgrade. So,
I mean, Hicks has 5 straight seasons now of 100+ tackles. I mean, they're not losing anything there, in my opinion. So, I can't even never say that guy's name right. But man, last year, Owusu Koramoah, I think it is. Man, he was a stud for the Browns. But I mean, I don't know what you think. I don't even know what the strength of this team is because there's so many. Like the trio of DBs is elite. Also,
they had one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. Now it's weird because they actually struggled on the road, which we could talk about. I don't know what we really.
I talked about that last year a lot. It was like they gave up at one point. They gave up the most points in the league on the road and the least at home. It was the weirdest. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah. And so like there might be something to that, but as a whole, they had one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. Right, one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, and this year they're coming in with a healthy Delpit. They're coming in with a healthy Rodney McLeod. So I don't understand how they're not one of the best pass defenses in the NFL again. They still got Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith on the 2 sides.
Yep.
So as far as defense, they're going to be elite again.
I agree. And they had some depth. Alex Wright, I think, had 5 sacks or something like that. But this DBs, I looked into this. So obviously you got Denzel Ward, one of the best in the game, had a quarterback rating against him of 49. Mark Emerson, 14 passes deflected, 4 INTs, and had a low 40s QB rating against him. Greg Newsome, sub 70 QB allowed, 14 passes defended. I mean, these guys were elite. It was unbelievable. And I think they work hand in hand, obviously. It's easier to be a good DB when you're getting pressure on quarterbacks, like this team did, a lot. So I don't see, and what I love about it, we haven't even mentioned it, Jim Schwartz. I mean, he's one of the best defensive coordinators out there, in my opinion. His teams always play hard. So I think we're going to get another elite defense, and it's going to be up to Deshaun. This is one of the weirdest teams because we're not talking about a different team. Yeah, we're taking the exact same team, just healthier, but there's not many changes to it. So,
yeah. So which kind of brings me back to I think if Deshaun Watson can be an average quarterback, give me 16th best quarterback in the NFL, I think the Browns win 11 games again. Would you agree with that?
I do, but are you just assuming then Jerome Ford and they have a decent running game until Chubb gets back? Because their O-line can handle it, which is a big part of it. But
I think the way I see the offense is, I think they have a functional passing offense as far as pass blocking, receiving weapons, like we saw with Joe Flacco, where it's not that Joe Flacco was really setting the world on fire. His stats kind of showed it, but really they just started slinging the ball and it was working. I think that Deshaun Watson can put up some bigger stats this year without playing anything better than average, just by the way they've built the offense, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. I agree. Yeah, but man, Flacco was pretty fun to watch yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. My whole channel thinks I look like Joe Flacco, so they call me Flacco all the time.
Holy shit, I actually could see that. We're putting Joe Flacco under his name the next time he comes on.
Yeah, someone asked me that at a grocery store even one time.
So they're going to be like, oh shit, Kyle got Flacco on? So let's pull up the schedule and play the win-loss game. Prop viewers going to get it up on the screen. The moment of truth. Are we getting to the magic number of 9 wins? Now we're polling, as far as the people watching right now, 66% say over 8.5, 34% say under 8.5. So we're polling towards the over. Prop viewers getting the schedule up right now, and then we'll go game at a time. This is always the toughest part because you could say what you think about about everything, and then you look at it, and you're like, oh shit.
I know you can't do it without looking at a schedule. I mean, you have to. Yeah. And why he brings it up, I will just say they have the 3rd toughest schedule in the NFL based on expected win totals. So it ain't going to be easy. I mean, obviously one of the hardest divisions out there. So
I think they could beat Dallas in week 1. I know it's crazy, but
with the health is what worries me. If that's in week 7, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Deshaun, I don't know. I don't know. If
and also, you're right with the health of the tackles, especially because 2 years in a row now we've seen Dallas pass rush look elite in weeks 1 through 6, and then look not elite at the end of the season. Yep. So I agree that we're probably looking at a loss there. What's the line on that game?
Oh, I don't have that.
I got it right here.
Okay.
Week 1, Cowboys, Browns. Cowboys are catching 1.5. So that's a coin flip. Let's count it as a loss.
All right.
At Jacksonville.
Every time I see Jacksonville on anyone's schedule, I don't know what to do with it. So they can beat
such high variance.
Yeah.
Well, another coin flip. So let's say, how about this? We'll give them one of those 2 games.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we're at 1 win. We're in week 3 against the Giants. That's a win.
Yep.
Week 4 against the Raiders. That's a win.
Probably.
Yeah. Week 5 against the Commanders. That's a win. So we're 4-1 right now without.
So you're going to lose that positivity soon, but okay, keep going.
Yeah. 4-1. We lose in Philly, assumably. Versus Cincinnati, probably a loss. Versus Baltimore, I mean, I feel like they'll take one of those games at home. In Cleveland, didn't both those teams lose in Cleveland last year?
I believe so, yeah. So I kind of have them for 3-3 in the division, to be honest. But
let's see. Baltimore, they beat. Oh no, I'm sorry. They beat Baltimore in Baltimore, actually.
Oh, they go back, and then Baltimore won in Cleveland. Was that?
Yeah, and they beat Cincinnati. So let's say they take one of those games, those week 7, 8 games. That puts them at 4-4. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, 4-4. That puts them at 4-4. Home against Chargers, that's a win. So we're 5-4 in the bye week at New Orleans. Ugh.
It should be a win.
Yeah. So let's say 6-4.
Chubb's return coming soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Like home against Steelers. I mean, depending on what you think at Pittsburgh. If this game was in Pittsburgh, I'd probably give it to the Steelers. But
yeah, I like I hate the Steelers, by the way, but I like the Steelers this year. I think they're going to be pretty dang good.
All right. So let's call 1 win out of the New Orleans and Pittsburgh games.
Yep.
They drop 1. So that puts us at 6-5. At Denver, probably.
Denver is hot garbage.
Yeah. So let's give them a win there. 7-5. At Pittsburgh, they'll take one of the Pittsburgh games, but let's just call this one a loss. 7-6,
and then it gets absolutely brutal.
Damn, 8.5 is tough.
Man, I don't know.
I think
I have it where I think they get 8 or 9 wins. Like I think it's spot on. To be honest with you,
I would go over. Put up over 8.5 for me. It's the minus 135 will probably keep this one for being one of my favorites.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I lean under, because it's plus money, because I think it's 8 or 9 is where they end to this year.
Right. So at the plus money, why not take?
Yeah.
Would this be? I don't know if you do future bets. What I do every year is I put out my favorite 5. This would not be in one of my favorite 5s.
No, it wouldn't. I don't always do under or over wins. I try to do more plus money, winning a division, things like that. But no, I don't love it. Here's my question: if this is a team that likes to take care of the ball, play defense, why the hell did they get Jameis Winston? Like, I know he's done better. He doesn't
exactly fit the mold.
No, not exactly. Pick 6 Winston? No, I don't understand. I don't understand that at all. But either way, I think they're a good team. But we'll see. It's all up to Deshaun.
All right. Steve, thanks for joining, man. Steve already texted me I just read the text a few minutes ago. So Monday for the Ravens, Wednesday for the Colts. You're in, right?
Yep, those two I'm in. Let's have some fun talking football.
Yeah, man. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you then.
All right. You too. Appreciate it.
All right, Andrew. Let's talk